He lived in a large house that looked impressive from the outside, with tall pillars, polished floors, and windows that caught the sunlight in the mornings. From the outside, it was a house of dreams, the kind people imagined when they thought of success. Yet inside, the house felt quiet in a way that sometimes made him feel uneasy. He had everything that money could buy. The best food, the newest gadgets, a car collection that could rival any showroom. People often assumed that someone with his wealth must be happy, but he often felt a strange emptiness he could not explain. He had a routine that rarely changed. Mornings were filled with meetings, phone calls, and endless emails. Afternoons passed in travel from one place to another, making deals and signing papers. Evenings were spent at events or entertaining important clients. His life was orderly, structured, and successful in the eyes of the world. Yet, in the quiet moments when he was alone, he often wondered if there was something missing. Among the staff who helped maintain the house, there was one person who often went unnoticed. She was the housekeeper. People saw her as someone who cleaned rooms, arranged flowers, and ensured everything was in place. She moved quietly, always careful not to disrupt the flow of the house. She never drew attention to herself, and she rarely spoke unless spoken to. Despite her modest role, she had a presence that was calm and reassuring, like someone who understood the rhythm of the house better than anyone else. She had been working there for years. No one really knew much about her life outside of the house, and she preferred it that way. She kept her past private, her joys and disappointments tucked away like little treasures no one else could see. She worked diligently, and in return, the house offered her a steady life, safety, and stability. While others often competed for recognition or praise, she found satisfaction in simple things. A room that shone after cleaning, a garden that looked cared for, the faint smell of flowers in the air after dusting. She found beauty in small details, while he often missed them, busy as he was with the bigger picture. The house was filled with sounds, but most of them were ordinary. The ticking of clocks, the hum of the air conditioning, footsteps on polished floors. Yet one evening everything was different. He returned home earlier than usual, something he rarely did. The day had been long and tiring, and he wanted the comfort of his own home. As he walked through the front doors, he noticed a soft sound. At first, he thought it might be the wind or the faint hum of the heating system, but then the sound became clearer. It was music, a melody he did not expect to hear in his own house. Curiosity pulled him toward the source. He followed the notes, each one soft and steady, weaving through the quiet of the rooms. The music led him to the parlor, a room he had walked past countless times without noticing anything unusual. And there she was, the housekeeper, seated at the old piano in the corner, her fingers moving over the keys with a skill that made the notes flow effortlessly. She was completely absorbed, lost in the music. Her eyes were closed, and her expression was serene, almost otherworldly. The melody she played was beautiful, filled with emotion and depth. It was clear that she had played it many times before, yet there was a freshness to every note, a careful attention that suggested a deep love for the music. He stood frozen, unsure of what to do. He had never imagined that someone he had seen countless times in the halls and kitchens could have such talent. The music filled the room and reached into parts of his mind he had long ignored. He felt a strange combination of surprise and admiration, emotions he rarely experienced in his structured, predictable life. It was as if a hidden door had opened, revealing a world he never knew existed within the walls of his own home. For a moment he simply watched. He noticed the gentle way she moved her hands, the way her body swayed slightly with the rhythm. There was no arrogance or showiness, only a quiet dedication to the music. Each note seemed to carry a story, a memory, or a feeling that she expressed without words. He realized that her presence in the house, so often overlooked, held a depth he had never paused to consider. She was not just a housekeeper. She was someone who had nurtured a talent quietly, patiently, and with devotion. She did not notice him at first. Her attention was entirely on the piano, on the melody she created with every touch of the keys. The music seemed to fill the empty spaces of the house, making it feel alive in a new way. He felt a warmth that surprised him, a sensation he had not experienced in a long time. It was a feeling that money could not buy, a simple pleasure that came from witnessing something genuine, raw, and beautiful. Eventually, she finished the piece. Her fingers lingered over the final notes, and a soft sigh escaped her lips. She opened her eyes and noticed him standing there. For a brief moment, there was silence, an unspoken understanding passing between them. He did not immediately speak, unsure of what words could capture what he had just experienced. Her expression showed a hint of embarrassment, as though she had not realized anyone would hear her play. Yet, there was also a quiet pride, a recognition that the music she loved had touched someone else. He finally broke the silence with a simple word. That was incredible. The words felt inadequate, but they were honest. She nodded, a small smile appearing on her face. She had never sought praise, but in that moment, it was clear that her talent was real and had been recognized. The music had revealed a part of her that few people had seen, a part that was as human and as remarkable as any achievement he had experienced in his own life. That evening, the house felt different. He sat quietly, listening to her speak about the music, about the composers she loved, about the feelings she tried to convey through every note. He asked questions, genuinely curious, and for the first time in years, he felt a connection that went beyond money, status, or routine. He realized that life was not only about what could be seen or measured. It was about moments like this, where talent, passion, and dedication could create beauty that reached into the soul. He did not know then how this discovery would change his life, or hers, but he knew that something had shifted. The quiet house, once just a place of comfort, had become a place of revelation. In the hands of the person he had never truly noticed, the piano had become a bridge between two worlds, the world of wealth and the world of hidden, unspoken dreams. And in that moment, he understood that the true value of life often lay in the talents, stories, and passions that people carried quietly, waiting for someone to notice. After that evening, the memory of her music stayed with him. The melody seemed to linger in his mind, repeating softly in the quiet moments of the day. Every time he walked past the piano, he remembered the way her fingers had moved, the way the music had filled the room, and a feeling he had not known for a long time washed over him. He began to notice the house differently, as if it had more life than before. The floors no longer seemed just polished surfaces, the flowers no longer just decorations, and the quiet staff no longer just helpers. He realized that there was depth and beauty in the world around him that he had been too busy to see. Curiosity took hold. He wanted to know more about the woman who had surprised him so completely. He had spent years meeting important people, discussing business strategies, and negotiating deals, but he had never encountered someone who could move him in such a simple, human way. He wondered how long she had been playing, why she had never shared this talent, and what it had meant to her. He wanted to understand her story, not out of obligation, but because her music had touched something inside him that he did not even know existed. One afternoon, he asked her casually if she had learned music formally. She looked up from the task she was doing, her hands pausing mid-motion. There was a brief hesitation, a flicker of surprise in her eyes, and then a small, almost shy smile. She explained that she had studied piano when she was younger, that she had dreamed of becoming a professional musician, but that life had taken a different path. Family responsibilities, financial challenges, and the need for stability had forced her to give up on performing publicly. Playing the piano had become her private joy, something she could do quietly, away from the world's expectations. He listened carefully, intrigued by her story. It was unlike anything he had ever experienced. He had always been surrounded by people chasing recognition, fame, or wealth. Yet here was someone who had nurtured a talent purely for love of it, without any desire for reward. He felt a deep respect for her, an admiration that went beyond simple surprise at her skill. It was clear that she had endured hardships with grace, had found contentment in small victories, and had preserved her passion even when life made it difficult to follow her dreams. Over the following days, he found himself seeking moments when she might be at the piano again. Sometimes he would return home a little earlier, just hoping to hear the notes once more. Other times, he would linger near the room, pretending to read or work, while secretly listening. Each time, he was struck by the beauty of her music and the calmness it brought to the house. The piano had become a symbol of something he had long been missing: simplicity, joy, and a human connection that money could not provide. She noticed him lingering occasionally and seemed a little embarrassed at first, unsure if he expected her to play for him. But as he began to express genuine interest, asking questions about composers, pieces, and her experiences, she gradually opened up. She shared stories about the teachers who had inspired her, the performances she had dreamed of giving, and the small victories that had kept her motivated even when her circumstances were difficult. Her voice was quiet but full of sincerity, and he found himself drawn to the authenticity of her words. One evening, he decided to sit and watch her play without saying anything. The soft light from the windows fell across the room, highlighting the gentle curve of her hands on the keys. She began with a simple piece, then moved to more complex compositions. He noticed the concentration in her eyes, the way she paused slightly before difficult passages, and the deep emotion she conveyed without any need for exaggeration. He realized that her music was not just about skill. It was about feeling, about conveying the experiences of a life filled with both joy and sorrow. The music told a story without words, and he found himself captivated by every note. It became a quiet ritual. He would come home with anticipation, hoping to hear her play. She would often notice him listening and would smile, a small, private acknowledgement of the shared moment. Their interactions remained respectful and polite, but there was an unspoken bond forming. It was built on music, yes, but also on understanding and mutual recognition. He had always valued intelligence, strategy, and accomplishment, but here was someone who had achieved something far more subtle: mastery of an art that spoke directly to the heart. He began to think about what this meant for his own life. The meetings, the deals, and the wealth that had once defined him now seemed less important compared to the quiet, profound experience of watching her play. He started to reflect on how often he had ignored talent, beauty, and human connection in his pursuit of material success. He realized that life could be richer, deeper, and more meaningful if he allowed himself to appreciate these moments, to notice the hidden joys and passions around him. She too noticed a change. She felt seen, not for her work in the house, but for who she was and what she could create. It was an unfamiliar feeling, one that brought a mix of pride and humility. She had long accepted that her talent would remain private, a secret joy tucked away in the quiet corners of her life. Yet, here was someone who truly appreciated it, who recognized not only the skill but the heart behind it. It was a small but powerful validation, and it encouraged her to play with even more confidence and emotion. Their conversations became longer, filled with discussions about music, life, and the choices people make. He shared stories from his own life, the pressures of maintaining wealth, and the loneliness that sometimes accompanied it. She listened patiently, offering insight and perspective, not in judgment but in quiet understanding. He found that her presence was calming, grounding, and refreshing. In a world where people often sought attention or advantage, she offered honesty, patience, and genuine connection. One rainy afternoon, he asked her if she had ever performed for anyone outside of her family. She shook her head, a little embarrassed. He suggested that perhaps it was time she shared her gift more widely, not for fame or fortune, but so that others could experience the beauty she created. She hesitated, unsure if the world was ready to accept her, if she herself was ready to step into that light. Yet, the idea lingered in her mind, and a spark of possibility began to grow. It was as if a door had been quietly opened, showing her a path she had long thought closed. He did not push, nor did he rush her. Instead, he continued to encourage her gently, offering opportunities for her to play when she felt ready. He arranged for a few friends to visit, suggesting she play for them in the parlor. At first, she was nervous, her hands trembling slightly over the keys. But as the first notes filled the room, something shifted. The nerves gave way to the joy she always felt when playing, and the listeners were captivated. They responded with warmth and admiration, making her realize that her music could touch hearts beyond the quiet walls of the house. The experience was transformative for both of them. He had discovered a hidden world of talent and emotion within his own home, and she had begun to see that her gift was not something to hide but to share. The connection between them deepened, rooted not in wealth or status, but in the human experience of recognizing and appreciating something extraordinary. It was a reminder that life could surprise even the most experienced and accomplished people, revealing beauty and meaning in the most unexpected places. In the following days, he found himself thinking about the house differently. He noticed the sunlight falling across the floors, the subtle fragrance of flowers, the quiet efficiency of the staff, and the hidden talents they might possess. The music had opened his eyes to the richness of everyday life, and he began to seek out other moments of quiet beauty and human connection. He realized that true wealth was not measured in money or possessions, but in the moments that touched the soul and the bonds that formed quietly, without expectation. She, too, felt a shift within herself. She had always played for her own satisfaction, but now there was a sense of purpose in her music, a desire to share it with those who could appreciate it. The piano, once a private companion, had become a bridge between her world and his, between quiet passion and public recognition. It was a reminder that talent and dedication could exist anywhere, often hidden in plain sight, waiting for someone to notice, appreciate, and encourage it. And in that quiet house, their lives began to change in ways neither of them could have imagined, all sparked by a simple moment of music and attention. Days passed, and their quiet moments in the house continued to grow in importance. The millionaire began to realize that he looked forward to coming home, not for the comfort of wealth or the silence of the large rooms, but for the music. He would often find reasons to linger near the piano, sometimes pretending to read or write while he listened. Each time, he discovered new layers in her playing, subtleties that he had not noticed before. Her music had the power to make him forget the pressures of his life, to soften the sharp edges of stress, and to open a door to something deeper and more human. For the housekeeper, these days were different too. She felt a gentle encouragement from him, not demanding or intrusive, but genuine and patient. She had always loved the piano, but now there was someone to share the music with, someone who understood its importance in her life. It was a small shift, but it gave her courage. She began to play more freely, exploring pieces she had not touched in years, experimenting with her own interpretations, and finding joy in every note. The quiet of the house became a canvas for her talent, and she painted it with sound. Their conversations grew longer, deeper, and more personal. He asked about her childhood, about the teachers who had influenced her, and the pieces that held special meaning. She spoke of early mornings practicing, the small victories of mastering a difficult passage, and the disappointments of doors closed too soon. She shared the pride of accomplishments that had been invisible to the world. He listened without judgment, simply absorbing the story of someone who had lived quietly but fully, nurturing a passion in secret, and finding beauty in ordinary life. He began to see parallels in his own life. Despite his success, he realized he had neglected the parts of life that brought true fulfillment. His achievements, though impressive, were measured in numbers, contracts, and accolades, while her music measured life in feelings, in patience, and in quiet persistence. He understood that both worlds held value, but one had been missing from his daily experience. She had reminded him that talent and dedication could exist unseen, that joy could be found in small things, and that human connection was the most rewarding kind of wealth. One afternoon, as rain tapped gently against the windows, he suggested she play a piece she had once loved but had not performed for years. She hesitated, her hands hovering above the keys, a flicker of doubt in her eyes. She had long abandoned the idea of performing for anyone beyond herself. Yet, his calm encouragement and genuine interest made her nod slowly. The first notes were soft and uncertain, but soon she fell into the rhythm, each key responding to her touch with emotion and intention. The room seemed to disappear around them, leaving only the music, the story it told, and the presence of someone who truly listened. The millionaire felt something he had rarely experienced: awe. He had attended concerts, seen famous musicians perform, and yet this moment felt intimate and unique. The music was alive, carried by someone who had lived its meaning, not merely practiced technique. He realized that talent, when combined with life experience and sincerity, could create a depth that no formal stage could replicate. Her playing became a conversation, a shared understanding without words, connecting two lives in a way he had never expected. Encouraged by the growing trust between them, he asked if she had ever thought about performing outside the house. She shook her head, her eyes lowering to the floor. The thought had crossed her mind in the past, but fear, doubt, and life's responsibilities had kept her silent. He did not press, but he offered subtle support. He spoke of music as a gift meant to be shared, not for recognition or wealth, but so that it could touch other hearts as it had touched his. She listened carefully, considering his words, feeling a new possibility opening before her. Over the following days, he arranged small, informal gatherings at the house. A few friends, people who shared a love for music, were invited to listen. At first, she felt nervous, her hands trembling slightly as she approached the piano. Yet, the moment she began, the familiar sensation of music flowing through her took over. Each note resonated with the audience not because it was perfect, but because it was honest. They responded with warmth, applause, and quiet awe. For the first time in her life, she realized that her music had a power beyond her private satisfaction. She could touch others, inspire them, and share a piece of her soul. The millionaire watched her with admiration and pride. He felt a sense of joy and satisfaction that he had rarely experienced in his own achievements. He understood that this was not his success, but witnessing hers, recognizing her talent, and giving her the space to shine brought him fulfillment that wealth could never provide. He began to see that helping someone find their voice, supporting hidden potential, and appreciating unrecognized talent was a different kind of accomplishment, one rooted in human connection and compassion. As her confidence grew, so did the bond between them. They spent hours discussing music, life, and the choices people make. She would play and he would listen, sharing thoughts on interpretation, rhythm, and emotion. Their conversations went beyond music, touching on dreams, regrets, and hopes. He learned about her resilience, patience, and dedication. She learned about his struggles, pressures, and the loneliness that sometimes came with wealth. Through these moments, they discovered a shared understanding that transcended social roles and job titles. The house itself seemed to change. Rooms that once felt silent and cold now carried echoes of music and laughter. The piano, once a piece of furniture in the corner, became a source of warmth and life. Staff who had never noticed the housekeeper's talent began to see her in a new light, and even the millionaire found joy in the small details of his home. Every note played was a reminder that beauty and meaning could exist anywhere, even in the most ordinary or overlooked corners of life. One evening, he suggested a more public performance, not for fame, but for a local community gathering. She hesitated, unsure if she was ready, but the encouragement she had received over the weeks gave her courage. The idea of sharing her music with a larger audience was both frightening and exciting. She spent days preparing, practicing with renewed focus, refining pieces that she had played for herself for years. The anticipation grew, not just for the audience but for herself, the realization that she could step into the light and share something that had been a private part of her life. During this preparation, their relationship deepened further. He continued to support her, not as a patron commanding a performance, but as a friend who believed in her and understood the significance of the moment. He offered guidance on practical matters, arranged logistics, and encouraged her without pressure. The dynamic between them became one of mutual respect, admiration, and quiet companionship. Music had brought them together, but trust, patience, and understanding cemented the connection. Finally, the day of the small community performance arrived. She approached the piano with a mixture of nerves and excitement. The audience was modest, but their attention was genuine. As she began to play, her initial hesitation melted away, replaced by the fluidity and passion that had always been part of her talent. Each note carried emotion, history, and dedication. She realized that this was not just a performance, but a sharing of herself, a moment of connection that could never be replicated or measured. The audience was captivated, drawn into the story she told without words. The millionaire watched from the side, his heart swelling with pride. He felt joy not because of personal gain, but because he had helped someone reveal their true self, someone whose talent had long been hidden and unrecognized. He understood that witnessing growth, courage, and artistry could be as meaningful, if not more so, than any business success he had ever achieved. In that moment, he appreciated the depth of human potential and the power of encouragement, validation, and attention. After the performance, the housekeeper expressed a quiet gratitude. She had never imagined that her music could have this impact, that she could step out from the shadows of her private life and touch others. The experience changed her perspective, giving her hope and a renewed sense of purpose. She realized that talent, when nurtured and shared, could create connections and joy far beyond what she had imagined. It also reminded her that life, even in its hardships, offered opportunities for growth, recognition, and fulfillment if one had courage and support. The evening ended with a calm sense of accomplishment and reflection. Music had not only brought the housekeeper into the light, but it had transformed the millionaire's understanding of value, success, and human connection. He had learned that true richness lay not in wealth alone, but in recognizing, encouraging, and witnessing the hidden talents of others. The bond between them had grown stronger, rooted in respect, admiration, and the shared joy of discovering something extraordinary in the ordinary. And in the quiet house, the piano continued to sing, carrying with it the promise of more moments of beauty, growth, and human connection that neither of them could have anticipated. The day of the performance arrived with a quiet anticipation. The house had never felt so alive, with guests arriving slowly, bringing warmth, conversation, and curiosity. Some were close friends, others people who loved music, and a few had come simply to be part of the small gathering. Everyone noticed the unusual energy in the house, the feeling that something remarkable was about to happen. The millionaire watched silently, his heart racing with a mixture of excitement and pride. He had seen her play countless times in private, but now the moment was different. It was public, and her talent would be revealed to others who had never experienced it before. She approached the piano with her usual quiet confidence, but there was a tension in the air that made her fingers tremble ever so slightly. She paused for a moment, taking a deep breath, feeling the gaze of the audience, and remembering all the years she had kept her music private. This was new territory, and it was both thrilling and terrifying. Yet, the first note she played seemed to melt away her nerves. It was as if the piano itself was welcoming her, supporting her, and giving her the courage to share everything she had, held inside for so long. As the music filled the room, the guests became still. They listened intently, captivated not only by her technical skill but by the emotion woven into every phrase. She did not play simply to impress. She played to express, to communicate the feelings that words could never capture. Every rise and fall of the melody carried her history, her struggles, and her quiet triumphs. The audience was drawn into a world that was intimate, sincere, and profoundly moving. Even the millionaire, who had seen many talented performers, felt his breath catch as he realized the depth of what she was sharing. Her confidence grew with each piece. She played compositions that ranged from delicate and gentle to bold and passionate. She added subtle variations and personal touches that made the music uniquely hers. The audience reacted with genuine appreciation, murmuring softly, smiling, and in some cases, tearing up at the beauty and honesty of her performance. The housekeeper, once invisible in the daily routines of the house, was now the center of attention, and she handled it with grace. She had finally found a place where her talent could be celebrated, where her dedication and passion could be recognized. The millionaire watched her closely, feeling a surge of pride. He had witnessed the discovery of something extraordinary, hidden in plain sight for years. He thought about all the times he had overlooked subtle beauty in favor of grand gestures or material achievements. This moment reminded him that true value often lay in unexpected places, waiting for someone to notice. Her courage, humility, and skill had not only created a memorable performance but had also taught him an important lesson about seeing the world and the people around him with more attention and appreciation. After the performance, the room filled with applause. The guests approached her, offering compliments, encouragement, and admiration. They asked about her training, her favorite composers, and her experiences with music. She answered modestly, smiling, sometimes laughing, always humble. She had dreamed of such recognition for years, but never allowed herself to imagine it could happen. Now, with gentle guidance and encouragement, she realized that her music could inspire, comfort, and move others in ways she had only ever hoped for in private. The audience's reactions were not only about the notes she played, but about the story she told through her music. They sensed the years of quiet practice, the sacrifices, and the joy she had found in the piano. They felt the honesty and authenticity in her performance, which made it all the more powerful. For the millionaire, it was a revelation. He understood that talent, when combined with life experience and genuine emotion, could create a depth that formal training alone could never achieve. He was amazed not only by her skill but by the way she had carried herself through life with quiet dignity, preserving her passion against all odds. As the evening progressed, conversations flowed around the room. Guests shared their own experiences with art, music, and creativity. Some spoke about moments when they had discovered hidden talents in themselves or others. The house became a place of connection, warmth, and inspiration, all sparked by the simple act of listening and appreciating one person's dedication. The housekeeper moved among the guests with a calm confidence, enjoying the attention but not letting it overwhelm her. She felt a sense of purpose she had never known, a feeling that her life had changed in a meaningful way. The millionaire and the housekeeper found a quiet moment together after the gathering. He expressed his admiration, not only for her music but for her courage and the person she was. She thanked him, her voice quiet but full of emotion. She admitted that she had never imagined such an evening could happen, that she had never thought she could share her music so openly and be met with such warmth. They both recognized that the event had changed them, opening new possibilities and perspectives they had not considered before. He reflected on his own life, thinking about all the moments he had missed by focusing solely on success, money, and recognition. This evening reminded him that real wealth was not about possessions, but about experiencing life fully, noticing the beauty and talent around him, and creating moments of connection that could last a lifetime. He realized that helping someone find their voice, supporting hidden potential, and appreciating unrecognized talent was a form of richness he had rarely considered. For her, the performance was not just about recognition. It was about affirmation. It proved that her love for music, cultivated quietly over the years, had meaning beyond her private satisfaction. It gave her confidence to continue pursuing her passion, to consider teaching, performing, and sharing her gift with others in ways she had once thought impossible. It was a validation of her resilience, dedication, and the countless hours she had spent nurturing her talent in silence. The next few days were filled with reflection. The house felt different, alive with the memory of the performance. She continued to play the piano, now with a sense of purpose and a growing desire to share more widely. The millionaire found himself seeking moments of quiet beauty and inspiration elsewhere, noticing things he had ignored for years. He began to understand that life was made richer by connection, recognition, and the small but profound acts of courage that people carried in their hearts. Their relationship also evolved. The bond between them deepened, built on mutual respect, admiration, and shared experiences. He continued to support her, not in a controlling or directive way, but as someone who understood the importance of encouragement and space. She grew more confident, not only in her music but in the realization that her voice mattered and could have an impact. They shared conversations about life, music, dreams, and challenges, discovering that their connection went far beyond the roles of employer and employee. As word of the performance spread among friends and acquaintances, opportunities began to arise. She was invited to play at small local events, to teach students, and to explore possibilities she had never imagined. Each opportunity was approached with thoughtfulness and humility, and each performance became a new step in her journey. The millionaire watched with pride, knowing that his encouragement had helped her take the first step, but also recognizing that her talent, dedication, and courage had carried her the rest of the way. The evening had been a turning point, a moment where hidden talent was revealed, courage was rewarded, and human connection was deepened. Music had bridged a gap between two lives, creating a shared experience that neither would forget. It reminded them both that extraordinary beauty could exist in the most ordinary places, waiting for someone to notice, appreciate, and nurture it. The piano, once a silent piece of furniture, had become a symbol of possibility, inspiration, and transformation. By the end of the week, the housekeeper reflected on her journey. She had stepped into a world she had once only dreamed about, shared her music with others, and found recognition she had never imagined. Yet, she remained grounded, understanding that her path was still unfolding, and that each note she played was part of a larger story. For the millionaire, the experience had reshaped his perspective, teaching him to value life, talent, and connection over wealth alone. Together, they had discovered that the greatest rewards often came from simple, genuine acts of recognition, encouragement, and shared passion. And so, in that quiet house, life continued, but nothing was quite the same. The piano played on, carrying with it music, dreams, and the promise that talent, once hidden, could shine brilliantly when met with understanding, courage, and support. Their lives, intertwined through music and human connection, were forever changed, and the story of that evening became a reminder that sometimes the most extraordinary moments begin in the most ordinary places. Weeks turned into months, and life in the house continued with a quiet transformation. The housekeeper had grown into her new role, sharing her music with small groups and even teaching a few local students who were eager to learn. Each day, she approached the piano with a mixture of purpose and joy. She had discovered a freedom she had long thought impossible, the ability to follow her passion and let it touch others. The music no longer belonged only to her. It became a gift to anyone willing to listen, a way to connect hearts through sound. The millionaire watched all of this with quiet satisfaction. He had always thought that his greatest achievements were measured in numbers, in deals, and in possessions. Now, he realized that one of the most meaningful experiences of his life had come from encouraging someone else to find their voice. He had learned that wealth was not merely material, but could also be measured in moments of connection, in the act of recognizing talent, and in supporting dreams that had been quietly nurtured over the years. He began to see his life differently, appreciating small gestures, quiet joys, and moments of genuine human interaction. They continued to spend time together, though not in ways that required constant attention. Their conversations were filled with laughter, curiosity, and reflections on life. She would speak about her students, the joy of seeing someone grasp a challenging passage, or the thrill of performing a piece perfectly. He would share stories of his work, but also listen intently, learning to see value not in money or status, but in the experiences and growth of others. They shared a mutual respect, a quiet understanding that had grown over months of listening, encouragement, and shared moments of music. The house had changed too. It was no longer just a place of comfort and routine. It had become a place of inspiration and discovery. Music filled the halls more often, notes drifting from the piano even when no audience was present. Other staff members began to notice, quietly inspired by the example of dedication and talent displayed by someone they had once overlooked. Even the simple act of cleaning or preparing a room seemed to carry more meaning in a home where creativity and passion were valued alongside order and efficiency. It was as if the house itself had learned to breathe more fully, alive with the possibilities that came from nurturing hidden gifts. Opportunities for the housekeeper continued to expand. Invitations came from local events, community gatherings, and even small festivals. Each performance was approached with care, thoughtfulness, and respect for the audience. She did not perform for fame or money. She performed to share a piece of herself, to create a connection, and to inspire others to value their own hidden talents. Each performance reinforced her confidence, strengthened her dedication, and reminded her that perseverance, patience, and quiet courage could lead to extraordinary outcomes. The millionaire noticed the subtle changes in himself as well. He was less focused on the accumulation of wealth and more attentive to experiences that brought meaning. Walks in the garden became more enjoyable, meals more flavorful, and conversations more profound. He found himself noticing the talents and passions of others around him, appreciating what people could do rather than merely what they could achieve in the world's eyes. His perspective on success shifted. He understood that true fulfillment was found in connection, encouragement, and witnessing the growth of others. One afternoon, they sat together in the parlor after a small gathering of students. The housekeeper had just finished teaching a young girl to play a difficult piece, and the joy on the girl's face was contagious. They sat in comfortable silence, listening to the faint echoes of music still lingering in the air. The millionaire spoke softly, reflecting on how far they had both come. He realized that moments like these, unplanned and sincere, carried more value than any contract or investment he had ever made. She smiled, recognizing the truth in his words, and for the first time in a long while, they both felt completely content. The community began to recognize her talent more broadly. She received letters of thanks, invitations to perform, and opportunities to mentor others. Yet, despite the growing recognition, she remained humble and focused on the love of music itself. The piano was not merely an instrument. It was a medium through which she expressed her life, her experiences, and her emotions. Each note was a story, a reflection of resilience, and a testament to the power of nurturing passion quietly until the right moment arrived. Her life had become richer not because of external rewards, but because she had dared to step into the light and share what she loved most. The millionaire often reflected on how one simple moment had sparked this transformation. Hearing her play the piano that first evening had changed everything. It had revealed talent, courage, and beauty in a place he had previously overlooked. It had shown him that life's richness often lies hidden in ordinary moments, in people who are unnoticed, and in passions that are quietly pursued. He had learned that attention, encouragement, and recognition could have a profound impact, unlocking potential that had long been dormant as they continued to share their days. The bond between them deepened into a quiet friendship built on trust, respect, and admiration. They did not need constant words or actions to affirm their connection. It was evident in the way they listened, supported, and appreciated each other. They had discovered that the most meaningful relationships are often rooted not in grand gestures, but in shared experiences, genuine understanding, and the simple act of noticing the gifts others bring to the world. The house itself remained a witness to these changes. The piano, once a silent piece of furniture, had become the heart of the home, a source of inspiration, and a reminder of what is possible when talent is nurtured and encouraged. Music flowed through the halls more often, drawing smiles, sparking curiosity, and creating moments of beauty in everyday life. Staff and visitors alike were drawn into the rhythm of this transformation, experiencing firsthand the quiet power of encouragement and the joy of witnessing hidden talents emerge. Over time, they began to discuss possibilities beyond the immediate community. She considered teaching more students, performing at larger events, and even composing original pieces. Each step was approached thoughtfully, with a focus on authenticity and meaningful connection. The millionaire continued to support her, providing resources, encouragement, and perspective, but always allowing her the freedom to chart her own path. Their collaboration became a partnership of mutual respect, built on the foundation of shared experiences and the transformative power of music. Through these experiences, both of them grew in ways they had never anticipated. She had discovered confidence, recognition, and purpose, while he had learned to value depth, human connection, and the subtle beauty in ordinary moments. They had both been changed by a single act of attention: the recognition of hidden talent, the willingness to listen, and the courage to act with kindness and support. It was a lesson neither would forget, a reminder that life's true treasures are often found in unexpected places. As the seasons passed, Their lives became a rhythm of music, friendship, and quiet accomplishment. The house remained a sanctuary for creativity, reflection, and connection. The piano continued to be played daily, each note a testament to persistence, passion, and the courage to share what had once been hidden. Friends, students, and neighbors continued to be inspired, not only by the music but by the story of someone who had nurtured a talent quietly and someone who had taken the time to notice, encourage, and believe. The millionaire often thought back to the first evening he had heard her play. It had seemed like a small, almost accidental moment, yet it had set in motion a series of events that transformed both of their lives. He realized that wealth and success could open doors, but the real change came from empathy, attention, and the willingness to support the growth of others. She realized that courage and passion, even when cultivated in private, could create ripples that touched countless lives. In the end, they both understood a truth that went beyond music, wealth, or recognition. Life's most meaningful moments come from connection, encouragement, and the shared experience of discovering and nurturing hidden beauty. The housekeeper's talent, once unseen and private, had blossomed into something that transformed not only her life, but also the life of the millionaire who had learned to truly see, listen, and appreciate the extraordinary in the ordinary. And so, in the quiet house filled with music, laughter, and reflection, both of them moved forward with a renewed sense of purpose. Her piano playing became a symbol of resilience, courage, and the joy of sharing one's gift. His appreciation for life, people, and hidden talent grew deeper every day. Together, they had discovered that the most valuable treasures are often not material, but found in moments of recognition, encouragement, and connection that change lives forever. In the end, the housekeeper at the piano had not only amazed the millionaire, she had transformed him, and in doing so, they had both found a richer, fuller, and more meaningful life.